Hey, how's it going, everybody? If you're new here, welcome in, and if you've been here before, well, make sure to Spartan kick the like button on the way in. I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny, and today we're following up on a knife that I've had in my possession now for what I would call the better part of 3 weeks. And you can tell that I've had my opportunity, I've had my chance to put it through its paces because of the level of patina that these denim micarta scales are starting to experience. I've done a cut test on it, and I will of course post that throughout the video so you get a chance to see what it performs like. And I've got to say, before we get started, this is a knife that they have had a ton of time to perfect. And if this specific one isn't up your alley, if you want different materials, if you want G10 or if you want titanium or if you want carbon fiber, this knife has been so successful for Kizer that they've had the opportunity to make just about every variation of it that you can possibly think of. So if you decide that you want to pick one up, and like me, you've been holding out for so long, I'm here to tell you that you should probably go ahead and get one of these in your collection. But let's talk about why. Starting off with the specs. We have an overall length coming in at 7 3/4 inches. 3.3 inches of that is this black stonewashed 154 cm blade, which features a nice deep flat grind, and that is very thin edge geometry. For the hardware, we've got T8 hardware on the pivot and on the body screws, and then T6 on this deep carry inset pocket clip, which by the way is right hand tip up carry only. Sorry, lefties, again, there is no option for the clip to be swapped over, but it is single-sided, and it brings it all together with a weight that comes in at 4.3 ounces. So overall, it is a full-size knife, but it's also not terribly heavy either, and it's built to get the job done. We see that we have some really competent jimping here on the spine of the blade, exactly where you'd put your thumb, and of course, we have a nice finger cutout here. I won't call it a 50-50 finger choil. That's kind of more like a 70-30 finger choil, but you get a nice choked up grip here in a hammer grip or a saber grip, whatever you want to call it. You can actually get your index finger and your thumb fully aligned. And there is one deployment option and one deployment option only, and that is this oblong-esque thumb hole. Right next to that, you'll see the Sheepdog Knives logo and then C01C, which is what they're calling this model. And they do have models on the website that is the C01C Sheepdog or just the Sheepdog. On this one, it's just the C01C, but we know what they're doing. This is essentially a Kizer Sheepdog with a flipper delete and a deployment hole. The handle scales do have these 3 milled out lines here, which I would say that they're aesthetic only, but you actually do feel them with the tips of your fingers, and they actually allow for some really good traction. Speaking of the traction, the ergos on this knife are great. Something about micarta which I love is this, aside from it being very, very strong and durable, it is also very comfortable to hold. Now, something that I did miss in my initial impressions, but I definitely don't want to miss now, is the cutting geometry. This knife has some extremely good power behind it, and it starts off with this double swedge. So you'll notice that we have a nice swedge here at the top for some cutting relief, and then again here on the decline towards the tip. That's actually pretty cool, and I see a lot of sheep's foot blades that have a swedge, but they're usually only at the top. This one has it both at the top and at the tip, and design language like that gives it a feel that it was purpose built for the people with cutting tasks in mind. There's a ton of knives out there these days that are built to just be essentially adult fidget spinners, but this is not one of them. It's not to say that you don't get things like good action or, you know, blade centering or a good detent. You get all of those things, but you also get some cutting geometry, which is meant to get the job done. It gets really thin here behind the edge, and it stays thin for quite a while on that flat grind. There is no sharpening choil, but that's okay because we're actually pretty far away from the plunge grind, so you shouldn't have any issues getting plenty of life out of this blade when the time comes for you to sharpen it. Because it's made out of 154 cm, this is going to be a blade that will be easy to sharpen with great wear resistance, adequate toughness, and some decent corrosion resistance as well. When I was doing my cut test with this knife, I was actually shocked because I have done a few cut tests now through cardboard, and it's double-walled cardboard, And that stuff, you never know when it's going to bind up on the edge of the blade. The fact that we have thin edge geometry here right behind the edge that follows up the blade for so long means that it is very slicey indeed, even with the factory edge. And going through that cardboard like it was nothing was something that I thought to be pretty fun. Before I knew it, I ran out of cardboard and I just wanted to pick up another piece and completely dismantle it. So for the purposes of this knife, I would say that if you are someone that breaks down or opens a bunch of cardboard, this is definitely going to be a knife that gets the job done, but it's also going to be plenty slicey enough where you could essentially take this camping and you could do some food prep with it if that's your thing. You could cut rope with it. The nice thing about thin edge geometry is that aside from the knife steel's properties itself, the edge and blade geometry lend to some great edge retention that is going to be a joy to use. Very, very slicey indeed. So what do I like about the Kizer C01C? Well, for starters, blue denim micarta is 100% my jam. I love the way that it patinas. I love the way that it feels. And an added bonus is that if you are working in a wetter environment, micarta has a tendency to swell, and these pores in the micarta, they get more sticky to your hands and allows you to maintain a really nice fresh grip. And by the way, if you don't like the patina that's going on there, you can just go ahead and rub down your scales with some water and a cloth, and it'll bring back the original jean-like finish if that's your jam. Also, I'm a big fan of this jimping. I've been experiencing a lot of jimping lately, which is kind of sawtooth and it's aesthetic at best. This is purpose built, and you can feel it because when you rest your thumb on the spine of that blade, it locks you in and your thumb ain't going nowhere. You get all the grip in the world. Something else, speaking of cutting tasks, is that I noticed this notch here at the top of the spine of the blade. If you're wondering what that's for, that's so you can actually get a really good pinch grip on this knife. You could, of course, pinch grip this all day without issue, and that's pretty dang nice. I'm also a fan of this pocket clip design. Now, this is a standard bent steel pocket clip, but it is deep carry and it is inset into the scales. It's nice because it's there, it slides in and out of the pocket, and it gives you a really good amount of retention, especially if you are in a situation where you're moving around a lot. You don't want your knife to move around, you don't want it to pop out of your pocket. This design is really good as far as bent steel pocket clips go. And then finally, I love the price point. This is $79 and you get denim micarta and 154 cm with a black stonewash blade. That's really, really good. Now, it isn't to say that I love absolutely everything about this knife. There are essentially two nitpicks that I have, and yeah, these are nitpicks. They're not real problems. The first nitpick that I have is that we have T8 body screws and a T8 pivot, but the pocket clip screws are T6. It's not a huge deal because the pocket clip itself is not reversible, so the amounts of times that you'll actually need to take that pocket clip off is going to be pretty minimal when you're doing a disassembly. Chances are you should only need to really take out these body screws and the pivot screw and you're good. You know, take out 3 screws and you're good. And then, of course, the other thing that I'm not a huge fan of is, and this is a design choice less than a flaw, but this really should have a backspacer. This is a knife that was built to be used and built to be carried, and when you carry it all the time, it's going to land in your pocket. All of this open back design is great for, you know, cleaning out dust and debris and whatnot, but the fact that dust and debris that can actually get in there is the point that I'm trying to make. Anything that hits the edge of this blade could potentially cause a roll or a spot that is not as sharp over time. So things like keys and change and gizmos and gadgets in your pocket, or just anything, you know, maybe you are setting it down on the ground and there's some gravel, you know, anything can get there with an open back design. And I'm not a fan of that on a knife that's meant to be used because I don't want anything dinging up my blade. I want it to be sharp when it comes time to use it, and having a backspacer would actually help protect this extremely slicey edge. But ultimately, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because Kizer has had the opportunity to make many, many models of this knife, and I will make sure to link to a page down below where you can check out all of them. If you want it in titanium, you can get it in titanium. If you want it with a flipper tab instead of a finger choil, you can do that. If you want it with a fuller tab, you can do it. If you want it with a thumb stud, they have that. If you want it in more premium or less premium materials, they have that, and most of them are at a very good price point, especially this one. I'm impressed. I was shocked in the cut test video by how cleanly it cut through the double-walled cardboard, and I was impressed by the finish because it didn't leave any marks, and it's not uncommon when cutting through cardboard for your blade to get marked up because you never necessarily know what that cardboard is made of. But now I'm curious, do you have a Kizer sheepdog or a C01C? If not, why not? Let's have that conversation in the comment section down below, and if you want to watch more awesome knife and EDC content, make sure to click on one of the videos that pops up next.